Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivar Dari, Jaya Girivar Dari, Jaya Yashodananda Jaya Prajajana Ranjana, 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 Jaya Yamuna Kiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Yamuna Kiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, राधा माधव की जय, जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुंदर माई की जय, नरसिंह भगवान की जय, पंचतत्व की जय, षड गोस्वामी की जय, गुरु परंपरा की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की जय, टैगोर। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God Narayana, unto Narayana, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, Hare Krishna Guru's Matajis, welcome all of you. Thank you for joining and keeping up the appointment with Krishna for here Srimad Bhagavatam. So, today we will be discussing from second canto, first chapter. So, we have completed first canto, right? By Krishna's mercy. So, second canto, first chapter. The chapter is entitled as the first step in God realization. It's a wonderful chapter. It's worth meditating on all these points and noting down and trying to take lessons how we can put it into our daily life, practical life. So we'll take the one verse and then we'll go ahead into discussion. Right? And I have taken this fifth verse. So second chapter, second canto, first chapter, fifth verse. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam. Any Prabhuji's Mataji's can say want to recite?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. May I?
Please go ahead. Yes, Mataji.
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam. Hare Krishna.
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Bhayam.
Thank you. So word to word equivalence. Tasmat, for this reason, Bharata, O descendant of Bharata, Sarvatma, the super soul, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Ishvaraha, the controller, Harihi, the Lord who vanquishes all miseries, Shrotavya is to be heard, Kirtitavyaha, to be glorified, Cha also, Smartavyaha, to be remembered, Cha and Ichchata, of one who desires, Abhayam, freedom. Translation and purport by Divine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please hear the translation and purport. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Purport. In the previous verse, Sri Sukadeva Goswami has described how the foolish, materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death, the 84 lakh species of life, the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized man, and then again the human form, which is a chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, and good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. So when one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds. And thus, it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is a super soul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings. And thus, by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in his creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Shukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. Jai Shri Prabhupada's transcendental purport ki jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhya Kripasindhu Bhayevicha Patikanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yanta Pravishya Mamavachimam Pasuktam, Sanjeevayati Kilashakti Dharasvadamnam, Anyam Chahasta Charana Shravanato Gadin, Rana Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tabhyam. So, Hare Krishna Prabhu's Matajis. So, this chapter is entitled The First Step in God Realization. And the first Prabhupada gives, we always say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? He's all giving explanation. What is he? So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om is, O my Lord. Namaha, my respectful obeisances unto you. Bhagavate, unto the personality of God. And Vasudevaya, unto Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. The translation is, O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of God, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. See, it's very nice to read this purport about to understand what is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya means to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Since by chanting the name of Krishna, Vasudeva, one can achieve all the good results of charity, austerity, and penances. It is to be understood that by chanting of this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the author or the speaker or any one of the readers of Srimad Bhagavatam is offering respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality, Lord Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the principles of creation are described, and thus the first canto may be called creation. Similarly, in the second canto, the post-creation cosmic manifestation is described. The different planetary systems are described in the second canto as different parts of the universal body of the Lord. For this reason, the second canto may be called the cosmic manifestation. There are 10 chapters in the second canto. And in these 10 chapters, the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam and the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. So we are now in the second canto, we are starting. So the first chapter, today we are discussing the first chapter, we will be discussing 20 verses today. So the first chapter describes the glories of chanting. And it hints at the process by which the neophyte devotees may perform meditation on the universal form of the Lord. In the first verse, Shukadeva Goswami replies to the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, who asked him about one's duties at the point of death. Maharaj Parikshit was glad to receive Shukadeva Goswami, and he was proud of being a descendant of Arjuna, the intimate friend of Krishna. Personally, he was very humble and meek, but he expressed his gladness that Lord Krishna was very kind to his grandfathers, the sons of Pandu, especially his own grandfather Arjuna. And because Lord Krishna was always pleased with Maharaj Parikshit's family, at the verge of Maharaj Parikshit's death, Shukadeva Goswami was sent to help him in the process of self-realization. Maharaj Parikshit was a devotee of Lord Krishna from his childhood, so he had natural affection for Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami could understand his devotion. Therefore, he welcomed the questions about the king's duty. Because the king hinted that the worship of Lord Krishna is the ultimate function of every living entity, Shukadeva Goswami welcomed the suggestion and said, because you have raised questions about Krishna, your question is most glorious. Very nice point, right? Because you have raised questions about Krishna, your question is most glorious. So the translation of the first verse is as follows. The first verse is Shri Shukovacha. Variyanesha te prashnaha krito lokahitam nrapa atmavidsammata pumsam shrotavyadishu yaparaha. So here now Shukadeva Goswami is telling, my dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. So the answer to this question is a prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. We'll just discuss. See, nowadays, with all the advancements, in communication facilities, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, right? Through mobiles and the internet, right? So there is bombardment of so much news, which are completely useless. So one needs to be very, very alert in filtering and taking out only that which is really of any use. Otherwise, victimized by Maya, our attention is victimized by Maya, no? So we will be dragged into different directions, ultimately resulting in waste of our valuable time in this human world. Just like we don't allow others to throw garbage in our courtyard, right? Well, nobody, right? So we should not let all this unwanted news, to enter in the courtyard of our mind. Nor should we be instrumental in passing such unwanted news to others also. What's up? When it comes, we read or not, we forward it. Correct? So it will be difficult for us to assimilate, and again, you want to agitate others. So Bhagavatam 119:37 verse and 38 verse, Parishit Maharaj very nicely inquires from Shukadeva Goswami. What does he say? He says, you are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. See, what is the question right now? Please let me know what a man should hear, what a man should chant, what a man should remember, and what a man should worship, and also what he should not do. So when Parishit Maharaj is making these inquiries, he is already aware of the curse by Shringi Brahmana that he would be dying within 7 days. But being a pure devotee of the Lord, he is asking questions which will not just benefit him, but for all the generations to come. So that is why Shukadeva Goswami becomes very pleased with his question and says in the first verse, right? So in this first purport, Prabhupada says, even the very question is so nice that it is the best subject matter for hearing. See, simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfection stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person. So any question about him is original and perfect. See, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to that transcendental position. So the questions of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified. The Srila Prabhupada, he translates the word Lokahitam. Lokahitam is as beneficial for all men. So before we blindly forward some message or spread some news in social media, it is worth to introspect whether it is Lokahitam, whether it is worth hearing. So remember this Lokahitam, whether anything you receive, whether this is Lokahitam, that is worth hearing for others also. When it is not, we better refrain from such activities and use our senses in Krishna's services, because it is not that Parikshit Maharaj was alone on the verge of death. It is not that only Parikshit Maharaj alone was on the verge of death, right? Srila Prabhupada in one of his lectures very nicely hammers the truth that every one of us are on the verge of death. Also, these days, we don't have guarantee that our senses will be working in working condition till the last day. So now, when they are in the reasonably working condition, why to fill our ears or use our mouth for hearing or speaking all junk things? Correct. See, the qualities of envy, anger, it not only hurts others, but also the person who possesses it, right? So envy makes us insane in this life, and as a result, we fail to appreciate the person or obey even the good instructions given by him. True, we can understand that, right? Even we hate that particular person, no? We envy him. So even if he gives a good instruction, we don't take it. So my Guru Maharaj says, when we envy someone, we cannot relish their association. We lose so much by being envious. Also, when we envy someone, it only indicates that we are envying Krishna. Because it is only by Krishna's grace that the other person is flourishing, correct? And he also jokingly said that if we have envy, then Krishna will also have the two capital N and capital V, envy. No vacancy. No vacancy to us. And he will not let us in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada, he says, a devotee is never envious of another devotee. See, one's friend or god brother or god brother, god sister, or increases in devotion, the other devotee he is, but he's not envious of them, correct? Because he's a devotee. He simply thanks him. Oh, my brother, my sister, or my father, like that. He has advanced in so much devotion. I could not do so. So how can I follow him? This is Vaikuntha conclusion. Kunta means anxiety. Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So when we see someone flourish in their life, instead of feeling jealous and ruining our lives, we should learn to appreciate their service and try to learn from them and improve the quality of our lives. Otherwise, our mind becomes cluttered, no? With all unwanted thoughts and plans for defaming them. And in that process, we forget the very goal of our human life. And what happens? We remain loitering in this middle world, birth after birth. So since it is difficult to give up the anarthas just by our endeavor alone, Prahlad Maharaj prays to Lord to bestow everyone with the gift of devotional service. So when one engages their mind and senses in service of Supreme Lord Krishna and remain absorbed in his thoughts, there will be no room for any bad ideas. See, day in and day out, we keep hearing about the importance of Krishna Katha. But what is the level of eagerness present in us when you are given an option to hear Krishna Katha or Gramya Katha? Instead of inquiring about Krishna, we will talk about so many other things. So in this regard, the second verse, 212, this says, no, very nice, beautiful verse. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrashah Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grahamedinam. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society. Oh, brother, have many subject matters, right? See, if we theoretically accept that Shravanam of Krishna Katha is the best, then why are we not applying it practically? Why are we eager to hear or speak about things other than Krishna? See, in one of our classes, Guru Maharaj says that the reason is why we are not interested. We are not eager to hear and speak about Krishna. The reason is because we are not having the attraction to transcendence. See, who it is important to have attraction to the transcendence and understanding it through the pages of Bhagavad Gita. See, in the first canto, second chapter, 12th verse, the beautiful Prabhupada has given. Please hear very carefully. Devotional service is based on the foreground of full knowledge. Devotional service is based on the foreground of full knowledge and combined with the detachment from material association, which is fixed by the oral reception of Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method through which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the supreme absolute truth. This purport has to be engraved in our home, right in front of us always. Devotional service is based on the foreground of full knowledge and combined with the detachments from mental association, which is fixed for the oral reception of Vedanta Shruti, is only perfect method through which the seriously inquisitive student can realize their supreme absolute truth. You know, the serious inquisitiveness is absent. That's why there are 24 hours a day, correct? And out of the 24 hours a day, 23 and a half goes in nonsense. And that work done in 23, see, the work which we are doing in 23 and a half hours could be done in half an hour. That capacity we have, but we are wasting our time. See, many times due to lack of serious inquisitiveness, no, and the false thinking that we would continue to live forever in this material world, we even take even the process of devotional service for granted. We keep procrastinating the study of scriptures. You know what is procrastinating? Postponing. Kal karenge, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. So when we understand that everything is nashwaram, temporary in this material world, including our stay in the body, in this body, then we will get the seriousness for devotional service. So that seriousness will drive away all the lethargy, laziness. See, one devotee very nicely shared that in order to understand this temporary nature of material world and permanent bliss in the spiritual world, we should take shelter of VRS. Everybody remembers VRS? Voluntary Retirement Scheme, the golden handshake, right? So we should take VRS, which actually stands for Voluntary Regular Study. Voluntary Regular Study. Swacheshtitam of scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So let us remember, always remember that we have to leave this body any moment. And there is no time for lethargy in taking up the serious study of scriptures. Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, he says, to inquire about Krishna and receive the proper answer, that is our life. To inquire about Krishna and receive the proper answer, that is our life. So for those who don't care about the philosophy of soul, he says, apashyatam atma tattvam. For those who don't care, then hundreds and thousands of other news to hear they have. So such people have so many things to inquire and so many things to hear. But such news are not going to solve the real problems of life. What are the real problems of life? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Birth, death, old age, and disease. So these could not be overcome by any amount of material knowledge or medicine. Krishna is all attractive and great. So to know about his greatness, we have to hear about him. See, we might be attracted to our kith and kin also, and we would like to sing their glories. But that might not attract everyone. Lupa says, God must be attractive, otherwise who is interested? You can hear about your son because he attracts you for you, but not for others. Just like how when one loves their son, they keep on speaking about him and remembering him, right? So Srila Prabhupada says, similarly, either you think of God 24 hours or to hear about him for 24 hours, the same thing. There is no difference. So if you chant or hear about Krishna, you will find so many things interesting. So what happens by such hearing is also told by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti sattatvatvaha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. It's a guarantee Krishna is giving. So Prabhupada says that the goal of life is to know God, know Krishna, to love him. See, we would have heard many times God is great. But to know how great he is, we have to take shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastras and hear about him. Simply by hearing about him sincerely, then we will be able to remember him. And that remembrance, particularly at the time of death, will assure us freedom from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. See, Prabhupada very nicely says how so much news is there in the newspapers of the cities and towns where we live in this material world, correct? So much newspapers, right? In the US and all, you'll have so big bundle, one day, maybe hundreds of pages. If there is so much news, even for such an insignificant portion of this material world, then how much more news will be there for the spiritual world? See, Prabhupada explains how there are so many planets in each universe and millions and trillions of universes in the material world. which itself is only 1/4 of the Krishna's creation. See, remaining 3/4 portion is spiritual world. But due to the poor fund of knowledge, common people don't know the glories of the spiritual world. Prabhupada says how people were surprised when he said he will be translating Srimad Bhagavatam and it might go up to 60 volumes. And when they questioned, how is it possible to write 60 volumes of books? Prabhupada said, this universe is a fragment of the whole material creation. And within this universe, there are millions and trillions of planets. So out of those millions and trillions of planets, this planet is most insignificant. And within this planet, there are so many cities. London, New York, Bombay, Calcutta, so many. And from each city, there are hundreds of newspapers. And each newspaper, they are publishing 4 times. So if for this teeny place, there are so many informations, just imagine how much information you can have from the spiritual world. Just imagine. So 60 volumes of description of the spiritual world is nothing. It is simply a sample. If 60 millions of volumes would have been written, it still was insufficient. There is so many information. Although there is so much to hear, people are very selective in what they want to hear. The Prabhupada gives example of how scientists are interested only in science magazines. Doctors are interested only in medical journals. Likewise, transcendentalists, that is devotees, are interested only in hearing about Krishna. See, Prabhupada was referring to the group who were assembled to hear Krishna Katha. He said, had it been a political meeting or business meeting, many people would have crowded around, right? But because it is about Krishna, these days people are so degraded, the number of people who attend is less. So just like how Krishna, out of compassion for conditioned souls, canvassed them to surrender unto him, it is our duty to also to canvass. Request others to take up the process of bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Bharata bhumile hele manushya janma yara janma sartaka kare kara para upakar. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatavarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. So Prabhupada insists, we have to canvass from door to door. How? My dear sir, why you are forgetting yourself? Kindly trying to understand. Here is a book, Bhagavad Gita. Try to understand. Here is book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So our task is very strenuous. Sometimes they become angry, dissatisfied. Why you are bothering me? But we have to do it because we have dedicated our life to Krishna. Therefore, we have to do it. I'm not telling Krishna, Prabhupada is specifying. So our responsibility in this rare human birth is not only perfect our lives, but also help others to perfect their lives by hearing about Krishna and taking up this process of devotional service. See, the distinction between, in this verse only, is talking about second verse, which is no Griheshu Graha Medina. Let us see what is that. Prabhupada, in one of the lectures, he clarifies distinction between Grihasthas and Graha Medis. See, in whichever social order or spiritual order we belong to, spiritual cultivation is a must. So Grihasthas are those who have their aim as Krishna. Although like Graha Medis, they might also be having home, wife, children. All their activities are centered around pleasing Krishna. If they are not pleasing, then it is Graha Medis. So Prabhupada gives example of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Bhaktivedanta Thakur is the father of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, who is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. So he gives example. See, Bhaktivedanta Thakur lived as an ideal Grihastha. He was holding the position of a magistrate and was living with his wife and 10 children. So as soon as he returned from work in the evening, he will honor prasadam, read scriptures for an hour, and then go to rest. Then he will wake up at 12 a.m., midnight, and keep writing commentaries for the scriptures till 4 a.m. daily. See, from his life, you can see how, irrespective of ashram, he dedicated so much time for spiritual practice. At the same time, he was very responsible in his prescribed duties as well. See, all these great souls show us how if laulyam is true eagerness. How if laulyam or true eagerness to serve Krishna is there, then spiritual cultivation, practice, and advancement is all possible in all ashramas. We should have that true eagerness. On the other hand, the Grahamedis, whose aim is only to satisfy their own senses, end up being envious of others. Rupa gives a very funny example for this envious nature. He says, Grahamedis have this signboard, right, in their house, outside the bungalow or signboard, beware of dogs at their home. Beware of dogs. Because they don't want other people to come to their home. Whereas Grihasthas are eager to welcome others to hear to their home so that all can hear Krishna Katha and make their lives sublime. That's why Bhagavatam 5:18-9, Prahlad Maharaj prays beautifully. Swastyastu vishvasya kala prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mitodhiya manascha badram vajata dadokshaje aveshakamno matira prahaituki. It's a beautiful verse. What he says, this is what we have to all daily pray. May there be good fortune throughout the universe. And may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing Bhakti Yoga. For by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendent Lord Shri Krishna and always remain absorbed in the thought of. It's a very beautiful verse which we should have in our memorize this verse and translation and always pray so that we are, because nowadays they say they don't think keep Krishna at the center, they don't think about God. All motivational speakers, everything, universe, you give it to the universe, it comes back to you, saying everything is coming from Prabhupada Maharaj. Prabhupada says, if one is complete in knowledge about Krishna, what is there to be envious of others? Persons who are aware of Atma Tattva can very easily see that every living entity in this world is suffering due to want of Krishna consciousness. So without envying others, they try best to help others take up the process of devotional service. So that is Grahamedis. That's what the second verse is talking about. The third verse, Nidraya hriyate naktam vyavayena chavavayah divacharte haya rajan kutumba baranena va. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family members. See, the time heals if you are patient. You should be patient. Something doesn't happen. You want everything to remain fast, right? Test match, one-day match, now 2020, even 10-10. Everything want to very quick. 2-minute notes. We want everything fast. Even the results. When we chant one round of, even say Hare Krishna, we want immediate results. See, the nights are spent in sleeping, and during the day we spend time in making money and fighting with family members. So there is no time really. And if you utilize your time, whatever short time you get, if you use it in solving your material problems, then you have no inclination to come to this. And because you don't come to this, the material problems become more and more draconian type. Draconian means very fearful. They just look at your eyes and force you to be more afraid. But if you are here, they can't come. They come and go. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Matra svarshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agamapayino anityas tam sitikshava bharata. Agamapayino means coming and going. So that is the nature of all the problems. You just tolerate. This titikshasva word is very important in the pages of Bhagavad Gita. See, everything you tolerate. And when you tolerate, the time will come when the miseries come, they will not be there because you are tolerating. Miseries will be coming and going, but they will not touch you because you are tolerating. And so you will not feel anything. And as soon as you tolerate, when the time comes, the miseries will go away. See, there is one allopathic book regarding different symptoms of diseases. right? Suppose if they are describing about cold or flu, then they were describing about what is flu, what are its symptoms. Then after the description in the end, there is a black line wherein it is clearly mentioned in the book that this virus will disappear within 7 days, within 3 days, or within a month, etc. So there is a set time for every disease. That is Bhagavatam. See, we know that there are so many subjects for Grahamedis and so much more for Grahasthas. But unfortunately, we waste so much of day and night in things which are not going to help us in our final journey. We work hard all day, spending all our time and energy to take care of body, not taking care of our soul. In one of his wonderful lectures in Montreal, Prabhupada explains Asat means temporary. Not only our body, but all these bodily relationships are all temporary. See, right from birth, we see so many of our near and dear ones dying. We know that we are also bound to face death sooner or later. So neither are we permanent, nor are our relations going to be existing forever. But foolishly, we place our faith on temporary bodily relationships. See, quoting the conversation between Maharaj Yudhishthira and Yamaraj, Prabhupada says, how Yudhishthira Maharaj said, every moment, every second, every day, every night, there are so many hundreds and thousands of living entities, they are going to the temple of death or dying. Ahani ahani lokani gacchanti hana yamalayam sheshaha stavaram ichanti. But one who is living, is thinking that I will not die. I will live for good. So that is the most wonderful thing in this world. That's what Maharaj Yudhishthira is telling. So when we see our near and dear ones die, we may develop a sense of vairagya, smashan vairagya, for some short duration. But later again, we fall into the modes and begin to behave as if we will be living forever. So instead of we inquire as to why we are here, so see the inquiry is what we should ask. Why are we here? Where did we come from? What will be our next destination after this life? And then try to engage ourselves in activities which will not entangle or engage us again in this material body. Then our life will be successful. In the 5th verse, it says, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma, which we recited, right? Beautiful verse. Bhagavaneshwaro Harihi Shrotavyaketi Davyascha Smartavyascha Chata Bhayam. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller and savior from all miseries. See, Prabhu's mata is we should do devotional service only to 2 purposes. 1, to glorify Krishna, and 2, to purify our own self. But there should not be any motive, without any motives. See, Bhagavan, Supreme Personal Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller, who is Hari, or one who protects us from all difficulty. Hari and Sarvatma, see, he is situated in everyone's heart. Super soul, right? So super soul should be heard. Shrotavya should be heard. We should be prepared to hear about him. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha. And we should discuss about him. Kirtitavyascha. And smartavya. So if we hear and discuss, then if you are really serious, then we shall remember also. Smartavya. Then we become fearless. So instead of studying, hearing, and sharing the news of this material world, we should study, hear, and discuss the news about the spiritual world. So Prabhupada advises, always stick to Krishna's lotus feet. So Maya will not be able to touch you. Just like in a contaminated, diseased area, the doctor is also fearful. Right? So he can go even to the contaminated state, but because he takes care of himself. Similarly, if you are in Krishna consciousness, even if you are in the midst of Maya activities, it will not affect us. To take lotus feet of Krishna, sanctuary of Krishna, right? See, in this 5th verse, Krishna is addressed as Sarvatma, Bhagavan, Ishwaro, Harihi. What is Sarvatma? See, Krishna is present as Paramatma in all living entities. So whether we turn our attention to him or not, with causeless patience, Krishna accompanies us life after life as Paramatma. So Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 13.3. He says, in this body which is known as Kshetra, there are 2 Kshetrajna. One is the living entity who is conscious only about his or her bodily pains and pleasures. On the other hand, Krishna as Paramatma knows the pains and pleasures of all. who is Suhrit or well-wisher for all. Second was Bhagavan. Krishna possesses all six opulences, full and unlimited knowledge, beauty, fame, strength, wealth, and renunciation. He knows all our past, present, and future. Srila Prabhupada gives a nice example of how one of his professors in Scottish college used to challenge the law of karma by asking, who is the witness for whatever deeds we did in the past lives? Correct? We say karma because of past lives. So who is the witness for that, right? That's the question. Prabhupada very nicely says, he had no knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. That person who is asking the question, we also at that time did not know. We were not very interested also. But later on, Prabhupada is telling about himself, when I read Bhagavad Gita, so here is witness. Upadrashta Anumanta. Here is witness, perpetual witness, Krishna as Paramatma, not only of this life, but many, many lives past. So he knows everything. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani. 7.26 Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything. That is Krishna. So he knows everything, what you have done and or what you want to do. So that is Bhagavan. Then see, it is Ishvara. Krishna is the supreme controller. And Harihi, Krishna alone can steal away all our miseries. So best thing would be to surrender to him, hear, glorify, and remember his glories always. So you have to understand. Now, how will you understand? How you will understand? By hearing. See, God has given you the ear, correct? If you simply hear, so there is no question of education. Huh? It's not that one who is not educated, he will not understand what is God, what is Krishna. He will understand because the ear is there. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, 7.5.23 Bhagavatam. Vishnu, Supreme Personality God, you hear. Therefore, we are opening so many branches. Prabhupada said we are opening so many branches just to give people the chance of hearing. And as soon as you perfectly hear, the next position will be glorify. In that class, Prabhupada says, just like these European American boys, no? He said, first of all, they heard. Now they are preaching. Shravanam Kirtanam. Now, because they have perfectly heard, therefore they are very enthusiastic. They are going all over the world. They are preaching. And so, Shrotavya Kirtita Vishcha. So if one has actually heard, known about God, then the next stage will be, he will be very much enthusiastic to speak to others. That is preaching. Shrutavya Kirtita Vishcha Smartavya. Smartavya means remembering. So unless you remember what is God, what is his form, what is his quality, what is his pastimes, what are his activities, what are his so everything about God. If you hear, just like if you hear Bhagavad Gita, you understand everything, what is God. And that is our only duty. Remembering Krishna is very, very important. And the very, very famous slogan is, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So remembrance of Krishna means associating with him. And by mercy of Guru and Gauranga, if you are able to remember him at the end of life, then we are sure, we have sure ticket to Goloka. See, we live in a world which is full of dualities and miseries. Scriptures describe how the spiritual world is completely opposite of the material world. Full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So in order to go there, to the spiritual world, we need to prepare ourselves here, no? By taking shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastras, who teach us by their own personal example. Excuse me. So when we prepare for any exams or journey in this material world, apart from our own interest and time, we need to spend a lot of money as well, right? Also, there is some basic set criteria like educational qualification. Still, there is no guarantee of whether we will be successful in our attempts, right? But the process of preparation taught by our acharyas and shastras for the journey from the material world to spiritual world is very sublime. It does not cost any money. It does not require that one needs to be beautiful or educated. Prabhupada nicely says, whatever you may be, it doesn't matter. That is Krishna consciousness. That will save you. So how to practice Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada doesn't leave anything like that. He gives it. He says, the first thing is we must hear. Shrotavyaha. Just try to hear what is God, what is his kingdom, how he acts, how he is cheerful. So these things are to be heard, Shravanam. Then as soon as you are convinced, oh, God is so nice, then you will be eager to demonstrate or to broadcast this news to the whole world. This is Kirtana. 7.5.23. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishno Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedam. Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana, right? It's a beautiful bhajan is also there. So this is life, right? Prabhupada says this is life. Otherwise, talking nonsense, taking a newspaper in the morning, this party has done like this man has declared war, that man has been defeated. These are simply waste of time. Simply waste of time. If we waste our time, then we are not preparing for the next life. Prabhupada says that Krishna loves all. And so he's always jolly. Whether he's dancing with the gopis, dancing on Kaliya, or riding chariot for Arjuna in Kurukshetra, he's always cheerful and jolly. So by always remembering him, chanting his holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, and his glorious qualities, by his causeless mercy and mercy of Acharyas, we will not only get an idea, an iota of his quality, even when we are here in the visible world, but we'll also be able to go back to him, either in this birth or the subsequent births as per Krishna's will. So in this world, we have the option of booking our tickets, right? For the destination we are traveling. When tickets are booked, the journey is a bit hassle-free, correct? We know we have reserved ticket is there. At least we would have some peace during the journey. It's also interesting to note that the date of journey in the travels here are fixed. At least we have some vague idea as to when we might travel, correct? But in the case of journey to the spiritual world, date of journey is known only to Krishna. It may be next moment, next hour, day, month, year. We have no clue of it. So what is the option for booking tickets for the journey to the spiritual world? How to be prepared for that? Prabhupada very nicely summarizes what Lord Krishna has been instructing us always. Krishna says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru in Bhagavad Gita. Simply say that. He says, you become my devotee. That is the difficulty. No difficulty. Krishna says, Manmana bhava bhakta. You become Krishna's bhakta. Actually, we are doing that. We are not doing any miraculous thing. People say that, Swamiji, you have done miracles. What miracles I have done? I am simply repeating Krishna's words. That's all. So everyone can do that. Everyone can take this matter very seriously. His life will be successful. He will make others successful. It's so nice thing. So Prabhupada was repeating what Krishna was telling, and we are repeating what Prabhupada is telling in this parampara. We go on just repeating that, life will be successful. See, in this is what he says on the 6th. Now, 7th verse is, O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost translators who are above the regular principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. See, in one of the lectures, Prabhupada says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he talks about the 6 Goswami, they were always writing books. Gunanu Khatane, Guna. What is the writing books? When we write these books, what is that? They are simply describing different activities and attributes of Krishna. Anu Khatane, Anu Khatane. Anu means not whimsically, but following the superior authorities. So you cannot write anything which is not approved by the superior authorities. Therefore, we have to give examples, quotations from Shastra, that what I am speaking, it is supposed to be supported by Shastra. Not that I have invented something. I can do whatever I like. That is nonsense. Anu Khatane means you must hear from the authority perfectly. Then try to write. Not that you write whimsically whatever you like. That is not allowed. And that will not be accepted. That's why in the first verse, in this chapter, we learn, Varyan Esha Rajan. He says, Atmavit Sammataha. It is approved by these realized souls. Not that whimsically I do something or you question something. No. The question must be approved by Atmavit, self-realized person, and the answer should be given by the self-realized person. Atmavit Sammataha. This is wanted. See, there are different methods by which approval was sought. See, in the very famous South India temple, Madurai Meenakshi, there is a tank with a golden lotus, where there is a float or board called Sangam float. So once the poets from the ancient temple Sangam Academy competed with one another to launch their books inside the temple. Now the legend is that It would not allow any unworthy poets to climb the Sangam float or boat. It will throw them out. Now, Thiruvalluvar launched his most famous Tamil book, Tirukkural, in the temple by boarding the Sangam float. This was the way of approval of the writings practiced so many centuries ago. So there are many beautiful pastimes in the lives of devotees where the Lord approved the writings of the approved devotees of the Lord, and this inspired the translators to approve and appreciate the writings of the devotees. Then it all becomes susammataha. See, to understand the science of Krishna consciousness, what one needs to really have is faith. So great Vaishnavas give a lot of emphasis in having faith. Now, Oxford Dictionary defines faith as complete trust or confidence. Prabhupada gives fantastic meaning of this word faith in the purport of 2nd chapter, 41st verse of Bhagavad Gita. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. So having faith, one must also execute the orders of or act upon, otherwise, what happens? What value that faith have? You have to act, execute the orders. See, there's a very nice story. Once a mountain climber who wanted to climb the highest mountain, he began his adventure after many years of preparation. But since he wanted the glory just for himself, he decided to climb the mountain alone. He started to climb, but it began to get late. He kept climbing until it got very dark. The night was very heavy in the heights of the mountains, right? And nobody could see anything. It's very dark. So all zero visibility, and the moon and the clouds covered the stars. So as he was climbing only a few feet away from the top of the mountain, he slipped and fell into the air, falling at a great speed. The climber could only see black spots as he went down, and the terrible sensation of being sucked by gravity. He kept falling. And in those moments of great fear, it came to his mind all the good and bad episodes of his life. He was thinking now how close death was getting, when all of a sudden he felt the rope tied to his waist pulled him very hard. So his body was now hanging in the air. He didn't fall. So only the rope was holding him. And in that moment of stillness, he had no other choice but to scream, "Help me, God." All of a sudden, a deep voice coming from the sky answered, "What do you want me to do?" "Save me, God," he yelled. "Do you really think I can save you?" asked the voice. "Of course, I believe you can," the man replied. Then God replied, "Then cut the rope tied to your waist." God said, "Cut the rope tied to your waist." There was a moment of silence. The man decided to hold on to the rope with all his strength, not having complete faith. Now the rescue team tells, next day, a climber was found dead and frozen, his body hanging from a rope, his hands holding tight to it, only 2 feet away from the ground. So this world is full of people who claim that they are the theists. They are atheists, not atheists. They are theists and have faith in God. At least they are far better than the atheists. But when it comes to executing the order of the Lord, like Sarva Dharma Parityaja or Man Mana Bhakto, they seldom act on it. So what value does that faith have? With the spotless Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, we know about the great Vaishnavas like Ambarish Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Haridas Thakur, who not only had unflinching faith in Krishna, but had exhibited wholesale surrender to the Lord at the most difficult of times in the life. So the $1,000,000 question is how to have that unflinching faith, where a devotee not only gets strong faith, but also gets the strength to act upon it. The Prabhupada writes in the 4th chapter, 39th verse of Bhagavad Gita, this faith is attained by discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. At another place, Prabhupada writes the purport. That is the 10th verse. This one only, 10th verse. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. So Prabhupada writes, a devotee of Lord Krishna is he who believes sincerely that by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one becomes fully equipped with everything spiritual. So this unflinching faith in Lord Krishna prepares one to become a student of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one who hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee like Shukadeva Goswami is sure to attain salvation at the end, as Maharaj Parishit did. See, in this verse, 10th verse, it gives the qualification of an ideal speaker and a qualification of an ideal listener. Let us see what are the qualifications of ideal speaker. 1, to accept one's previous acharya. That is the word tad anugraha, meaning by his mercy. Meaning, she signifies the fact that Suta Goswami is presenting Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Shukadeva Goswami, and that he was consciously grateful for Shukadeva Goswami's unlimited mercy. So, what he gives it to accept one's previous Acharya. Second is, should not have an inner motive, that is, twisting the message for the purpose of its own. It should be as it is. Third, ability to present the message in a way appealing to all classes of men. Four, he has self-assimilated the message. In other words, he has experienced what he learned as far as my realization allows. 5, he is free from the vices of Kali Yuga. 6, he has the knowledge of scriptures and the ability to hear and explain. 7, he has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source and by submissive hearing. So these are 7 points for qualification of a speaker. What are the qualifications of an ideal listener? One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. That is, the desire to sincerely hear the first qualification of a listener. And second is, the proper method to receive this transcendental knowledge is to hear it submissively, not a challenging attitude. Challenging attitude cannot help one to realize this transcendental message. So in fact, if we chant the holy names nicely without offenses, then gradually we'll become more and more inquisitive to know and learn about the transcendental qualities of Krishna. And then ultimately in that advanced stage of devotion, it becomes so difficult for us to keep away from speaking and hearing about the glories of God. That's why in the 11th verse, he says, O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is a doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, although also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. This verse speaks about complete chanting, and what are the 10 offenses he speaks about? First offense, second offense, all. He speaks about Prabhupada. He says, hearing of the holy names gradually promotes one to the stage of hearing about his form, attributes, pastimes, and so on. Thus, the necessity of chanting of his glories develops successfully. Prabhupada says that necessity of the chanting of his glories develops successfully, which means chanting the glories of the Lord becomes a necessity, not an option at the advanced stage of hearing. See, one cannot help but keep glorifying the Lord continuously. See, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so intense in his eagerness to glorify Krishna, that at times he would speak as if he had 1,000 mouths. Lord Anantadev is glorifying Supreme Lord with his thousands of mouths for thousands of millenniums, but still he is not satisfied with this service. So we can see from the advice of Narada Muni and also from Srila Prabhupada's transcendental purpose, the process like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Archanam, Smaranam, etc., they are all interlinked, and performing one's process nicely positively feeds onto others, with the ultimate result of developing steady transcendental love and devotion for the Supreme Lord Krishna. See, in the Padma Puran, the list of 10 offenses which we commit at the lotus feet of holy names are mentioned. And the very first offense is to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord. Vaishnava Aparadh. It's very bad, right? So in purport of 6, 17, 15, Prabhupada says, while instructing Srila Rupa Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava as Hathi Mata, a mad elephant. See, when a mad elephant enters a nice garden, it spoils the entire garden. Similarly, see, I will tell you. If one becomes like mad elephant, commits offense at the lotus feet of Vaishnava, his entire spiritual career is halted. One should therefore be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of Vaishnava. See, once Rupa Goswami was meditating on the pastimes of Krishna in the spiritual world, and was laughing. At that time, a lame Vaishnava was passing by, and he misunderstood that Srila Rupa Goswami was laughing at him, and he got offended and left the place. Immediately, Rupa Goswami lost his vision of Krishna's pastime. He became disturbed and could realize that something wrong has happened. Later, when he approached Sanatana Goswami, he came to know that about that Vaishnava, and he went to him and sought forgiveness for the offense, which he had unintentionally done. He didn't know about it. But then the other Vaishnava also realized his mistake of misunderstanding Rupa Goswami's laughter and sought forgiveness from him. See, upon hearing this pastime, I was wondering, how my false ego prevents me to go and seek pardon, even for offenses which are intentionally committed. In case if someone offends us by mistake, we tried our level best to prove to them and to the world as to how we are correct and the other person is wrong. But here we find great souls like Rupa Goswami, so humble that they're willing to ask pardon even for offenses which they had not committed intentionally. They simply want to live according to what pleases Krishna and not to praise their own ego. So my Maharaj also insists that It is always better to accept the blame and close that material account rather than wasting time and energy in proving ourselves right. So when we fail to follow the footsteps of Acharyas, we're bound to lose taste in chanting. See, everyone in this material world has some duty to perform, depending upon where they are placed in the Varnashma system. Whether one recognizes the institution or not, or call it by some other modern name. See, out of the many billions of human beings, some are attempting to perform their prescribed duty. Out of the few who are attempting, only a few are conscious of what their prime duty is. That's why in the 13th verse, Kattuvango, the saintly king Kattuanga, after being informed the duration of his life would only for a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. See, the purport, Prabhupada says, a fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. Activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. Very nice point. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. Human life is meant for preparing ourselves for that prime duty. Maharaj Kattuanga is mentioned herein as a saintly king because even within this responsibility of the state management, he was not at all forgetful of the prime duty of life. Such was the case with other Rajarishis, like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Maharaj Parikshit. They were all exemplary personalities on account of their being alert in discharging their prime duty. See, when the demigods invited Maharaj Kattuanga to fight demons in the higher planets, he fought the battles to the full satisfaction of the demigods. And when he was offered the benediction by them, the king, being very much alert to his prime duty, inquired from the demigods about his remaining duration of life. This means that he was not as anxious to accumulate some more material benediction from the demigods as he was prepared to himself for the next life. When he came to know that it would last only for one moment only, he immediately took shelter of Krishna. So by reciting this pastime, the great Shukadeva Goswami inspired Parikshit Maharaj that even though he had only 7 days in his life, he could execute the prime duty of hearing the glories of the Lord in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Sri Prabhupada, after concluding the purport to this verse, again repeats the same point in the purport to the next verse for the benefit of all. And so highlight that serious reading of Srimad Bhagavatam is not only for those who have come to know their balanced duration of life. Means everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was recited by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So we, as followers of the Krishna conscious movement, are fortunate to have taken shelter in this institution established by Srila Prabhupada, who has made us aware of our prime duty. So in the name of devotional service, we are engaged in so many activities to cater to the subtle desires of our mind, which is deviating us from the prime duty. So my Guru Maharaj says, for writing, we have to study first. The reason we are not writing is because we are not consistent in our study. It is true that devotees are generally more fond of kirtans, honoring prashadam, performing other simpler services because they do not necessarily staying in the Sattva Guna platform all the time. Whereas more intense services like chanting and study demand sustained and determined effort in the Sattva Guna platform, which is quite challenging for us. We're always looking for shortcuts to attain our goals. So somehow or other, if we develop a taste for relishing this great Srimad Bhagavatam, we will achieve the goal of life. So, see, one devotee asked me, Maharaj, he has been a little lazy for Mangalarti. He immediately chastised him, saying, if Yamaraj comes, you cannot say no to him by stretching your arms. This is because of our laziness that we are unable to wake up for Mangalarti. Ramattava means full of sense gratification. Those who are too much in sense gratification, they are very lazy. But Krishna is apramattah, very alert in the form of eternal time and watching us always. He will catch us and when we don't know, correct? So we should remember death. At the time of death, the body has to undergo so much trouble. Really, we don't know. So the pain increases so much that we lose our consciousness many times. So we cannot afford to be lazy. Devotee means he is always alert in devotional service. That's why 4:24:66 verse is very important in Bhagavatam. Pramattamucche ritikritya chintaya pravriddha lobham vishayeshu lalasam To pramatta sasa vipadyase shulle lihano iriva kumantaka. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things. And they're always busy with the desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity. But your Lordship is always alert. And in due course of time, you strike him just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. So when we can evaluate ourselves, maybe some people are just started, some are 10 years, 20 years, 25 years. When you evaluate our devotion, we are lazy in so many things. Number one, reading Srila Prabhupada's book daily. 2, increasing the quality of chanting. 3, improving the conduct and behavior among devotees after hearing so much from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad. 4, waking up for Mangalarti. 5, cultivating new devotees. 6, never trying to rise above the modes. And 8, obeying the orders of spiritual master. We are still lacking in these things. So the cause of such laziness is due to gross ignorance in being engaged constantly, because we are engaged in materialist mentality and artificially increasing material demands. So in order to become alert in devotional service, we have to remember the pastime of King Katwanga. We saw, right? Just he had only a moment of duration of life. So he immediately left, right? So this is the beauty of understanding these things. See, I will read the quote in this translation. See, Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. Just read this, listen to this purport. Shukadeva Goswami, after citing the example of Maharaj Katwanga, who prepared himself for the next life within a very short time, encouraged Maharaj Parikshit by saying that since he still had 7 days at his disposal, he could easily take advantage of the time to prepare himself for the next life. Indirectly, the Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that he should take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord for the 7 days still remaining the duration of his life, and thus get himself liberated. In other words, everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was recited by Srimad Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So the rituals are not formal. There are also some favorable conditions which are required to be carried out as instructed. So I'll just read this translation from 15 to 20 because it's not much of time. And it's not much actually. It's basically you have to do pranayama and do this structure. But see, it says at the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death. But one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. 16th verse, one should leave home and practice self-control. In a sacred place, you should be bathed regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified. This speaks about Varnashram Dharma, no? So you should do. And then 17th is, after sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the 3 transcendental letters, Om, and by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed. Like you just do the pranayam, this meditation, all these things. So to go, Omkara is speaking about Pranava, is the seed of transcendental realization. And it is composed of the 3 transcendental letters, Om. So by its chanting, see, by its chanting by the mind, in conjunction with the breathing process, which is transcendental but mechanical way of getting into trance, as divided by the experience of great mystics, one is able to bring the mind, which is mentally absorbed, under control. So this is the way of changing the habit of the mind. You have to change the habit of the mind, no? It is deviating us from the spiritual activities. Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, withdraw it from sense activities. And by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. The mind, too absorbed in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. The first process of spiritualizing mind by mechanic chanting by control of breathing is technically called the mystic or yogic process of pranayama. The 19th verse is, thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu one after another without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus, the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon. Because the Supreme Personality of God, Vishnu, the ultimate truth, the mind becomes completely reconciled in him only. In the 20th verse, one's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu, thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. So let us take a vow. After so many years, what we are lacking, what we should do now, right? 1, we should read Srila Prabhupada's books daily. Increase the quality of chanting. 3, improving the conduct and behavior among devotees. We should be devotee care and everything. So after hearing so much from Bhagavatam. 4, waking up for Mangalarti. 5, cultivating new devotees. 6, rise above the modes of nature. That is by coming to Mangalarti, naturally we will be in goodness, right? 8, obeying the orders, instructions of the spiritual master. So it's just stop here. Thank you, Gurus, Matajis, for giving me this opportunity to glorify Krishna, purify myself. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev ki jai, Nitai Gautam, Vancha Kalpataru Bich Kripa Sindhu Bhai Vacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Thank you, Gurus, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Prabhuji.
much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.